Hello and welcome back to AP Psychology. I'm Miss Lee and this is the final video in Unit 3, Sensation and Perception. This is Section 5, Other Senses. Our learning targets today are to describe the taste and smell processes as well as other sensory processes including touch, pain, vestibular, and kinesthesia. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and grab your notes and let's get started. Okay, we're going to start out with a grouping, kind of like a subgrouping of our senses called the chemical senses. The chemical senses include gustation or taste and olfaction or smell. So let's start with gustation. Taste is a chemical sense because a substance is what is detected. It's an actual outside something. It's not just energy like in sight and hearing. So there is something, a substance or a chemical that is going to wash over, in the case of gustation, your tongue. So it's done through our taste buds. So I want you to look at the picture on the left of your screen. This is a picture of a papilla, and on the sides of each of the papilla are taste buds, and that's what is actually going to pick up the taste or the gustation, the substance. And if you look over here to the right, this is the breakdown of the taste bud. And if you notice here, this is where the afferent nerve is. This is the sensory nerve. This is the information that's going to go to our central nervous system. So it goes from the basal cell, from the taste receptor, all the way from the taste bud. This is where the taste bud kind of starts. And it's going to travel down through the cell where it leaves and goes to the central nervous system through the afferent nerve. Taste buds regenerate approximately every 2 weeks. There's this phenomenon known as super tasters. These are individuals who happen to have more papilla, therefore they have more taste buds on their tongues. And you can actually do this demonstration on your very own if you just put a drop of blue food coloring on your tongue and then kind of blot it off with a paper towel. You should be able to pick out the papilla on your tongue. If you have more than average, about 25% of us are super tasters, then you typically are turned off by very strong flavored food. Our traditional taste sensations consist of 4 tastes, and this is probably what you grew up learning as our taste: sweet, sour, salty, and bitter. But there are a couple of additional tastes that I want you to be aware of. The first kind of new one is umami, which is just a really fun word to say. This is kind of like a savory taste. It's described as brothy or meaty. And then there is astringent. This is the type of food that makes your mouth pucker, maybe even numbs your tongue. What happens is it constricts the cells of your throat, and it's present in unripe bananas, in pomegranates, cranberries. So think about those foods that aren't just bitter, because it's different than bitter, it's different than sour. This is where you're actually going to have a difference in the surface of your tongue and throat. All right, let's move on to olfaction or smell. Like taste, smell is a chemical sense. Odorants or molecules of the object you're smelling enter the nasal cavity to stimulate 5 million receptors to sense smell. The olfactory epithelium is responsible for detecting odorants, and it's at the roof of the nasal cavity, right about 7 centimeters above and behind the nostrils. And humans are known to detect about 10,000 different odors. So even though you don't need to know all of these terms, I do want you to understand kind of where everything falls, where the difference in distance from the olfactory bulb to the receptor cells. Just take a look at this slide. Olfactory receptors in the nasal cavity regenerate approximately once a month. Do you have a hypothesis yet about why receptors in our chemical senses regenerate? If you do, jot it down. So there is a very special relationship between smell and memory. I want you to take a look at where the hippocampus is. Now go back to our previous picture and determine where the olfactory bulb is. It's number 1 right here. Okay. Where is the hippocampus in relationship to the olfactory bulb? They're nice and close to each other. So basically, our sense of smell is intimately connected to where memories are made, which is why certain smells are sometimes associated with maybe people that we love. There's a certain perfume that my mom used to wear that always reminds me of her. It's very, very heady with memories. And this is because my olfactory bulb is very close to my hippocampus where memories are made. which is why there is such a strong connection between smell and memory. Sensory interaction is when one sense affects another sense. So basically, the taste of fruit interacts with its smell and its texture on the tongue to produce the taste. If you take any of that away or change any of that, it's going to affect how you are perceiving the taste of that item. I want you to test this theory out and see if you can figure out different flavors of different things based on whether you can see them or not. You may have to get a partner with this, but blindfold yourself and see if you can tell without seeing the item, and then close your nose and see if you can figure out the taste of certain items. I'd love to hear back from you if you do this. Okay, body senses. Skin and body or somatic senses. Sense of touch is a mix of 4 distinct skin senses. So these are the senses that we can actually pick up with our skin. Pressure, temperature, vibration, and pain. So you can see that pain is labeled as A. This is the pain receptor in our skin. This is an illustration of how the different skin senses actually make their way to the central nervous system. Okay, let's start with pain. Pain is a mixed blessing because even though it's unpleasant, it does tell the body that something is wrong. It usually results from some type of damage to the skin or other tissues. There is a rare disease where the person has no pain. It is known as congenital insensitivity to pain, one of the HSAN disorders. The main features are a lack of pain sensation, obviously, but also a lot of injuries, sometimes an inability to sweat, infection of joints, and bone fractures. So let's watch this little girl who has HSAN.
First, none of us wants to feel pain, and we're especially protective when it comes to our children.
But what if your child couldn't feel any pain? That's a rare condition that so far has been diagnosed in only a handful of people. And as Juju Chang tells us, what sounds like a blessing turns out to be a curse.
In many ways, Gabby Gingras is a typical 7-year-old girl. She goes to gym class with other 3rd graders. Loves playing board games.
Okay, a miscellaneous 3.
And idolizes her older sister Katie. But in one very dangerous way, Gabby is not a typical little girl. She can't feel pain and is at constant risk of badly hurting herself. She's wearing a helmet and those goggles for a reason, but we'll get to that in a minute. This video was taken as part of a documentary called A Life Without Pain when Gabby was 4. Here she bangs into the sharp corner of a table, but just keeps on going. And see how unfazed she is when this dog collides with her? For the first 4 months of her life, Gabby was the perfect little baby. It wasn't until she started teething that her parents, Steve and Trish, noticed some odd behavior.
I was massaging Gabby's gums one day, and she bit down on me ungodly hard. And when I pulled my finger out of her mouth, I pulled the tooth out of her mouth. She's just happy playing like nothing happened.
It was as if she didn't even feel it. And that was just the beginning. The 4-month-old would teethe on anything, plastic toys, hardcover books, even her own fingers, until they were bloody.
She damaged them so badly, it really looked like raw hamburger. It was that chewed up and mangled.
She would also chew on her tongue like it was bubble gum.
It was bizarre and frightening. Steve and Trish brought Gabby to doctor after doctor. For months, specialists tested the baby for everything, from metabolic diseases to rare genetic disorders, and ruled out one disease after another.
Trish reached the frustration point, and she sat down at the computer and basically spent the whole weekend on the internet, searching and looking, and she found some pictures of kids with fingers that looked like Gabby's, just chewed up and mutilated. So that was the first time we'd heard the term hereditary sensory autonomic neuropathy.
HSAN. It's an extremely rare genetic disorder that affects the sensory nerves. In Gabby, the nerve fibers that detect pain and temperature never developed. There is no cure. Imagine their tug of war trying to give Gabby a normal childhood,
Careful on the steps.
but wanting to protect her.
I'm the worst playground mom. Because I'm like, oh, don't climb that high, please.
Oh, too fast. You want to hop down? Like most people, you've probably never heard of HSAN. Then again, maybe you saw it featured recently on Grey's Anatomy.
There. Can I I go now?
That didn't even hurt.
The real-life Gabby is just as courageous.
How about your teeth? What happened to your teeth? Oh, I heard you have one tooth. Where is it? I don't see it. Where is it? Oh, I see it. It's on the top. And do you have a name for it? Toothy.
The Gingrasses, on their doctor's advice, had all of Gabby's baby teeth pulled to keep her from injuring herself. But that caused her adult teeth to grow in early, and Gabby knocked out all but one of those.
I'm thinking, here's my beautiful little girl. She's not going to have any teeth. People are going to make fun. They're going to think we're awful, everything that goes through your mind.
The plan is to have dentures made when she's done growing. But what terrifies Gabby's parents the most is the fear that she could make herself blind.
Tell me about how the eye problem started.
She had just turned 1. She woke up from a nap, and I thought, oh, there's a little bit of fuzz or fluff in her eye. It wasn't fuzz. There was a real mark on her cornea. So I quickly called the local doctor, and they were just stunned. He said, if you had this, you would be in such excruciating pain you couldn't open your eye.
Gabby's left eye was so badly damaged that her doctor literally stitched her eyelid shut in a desperate bid to save her vision.
Because she doesn't feel the pain of it, she ripped her own stitches out.
Steve came up with the idea of using swim goggles to protect Gabby's eyes. But it was already too late. She'd lost the vision in her left eye, and now it was at risk of developing into a life-threatening infection. The only solution was a drastic one: remove the injured eye.
It just brings back those images of the hospital and letting her go on the gurney, and no parent should ever have to watch their child do that.
Today, Gabby has an artificial left eye.
You want to see how beautiful it looks?
I want to see my for a second.
She wears a protective contact lens over the right one, which is also damaged. For good measure, she uses safety glasses during the day and those swim goggles at night.
You all set?
Yeah.
Comfy?
Despite all these precautions, Gabby still manages to hurt herself constantly.
Careful.
Do kids like Gabby reach adulthood?
How old does that make you? 6 years old? Wow.
Can they have normal lives? Experts aren't even sure.
So I thought you might be curious about what has happened to Gabby. So there is an update, and it's still a little bit out of date, but this shows Gabby a few years later.
In 2005, we met 5-year-old Gabby. She's a little girl unlike any other, born with an extremely rare condition. She cannot feel physical pain. When Gabby was just a baby, there were signs she was not like other children. Her parents say she started compulsively chewing on her own hand, mutilating 3 little fingers. Eventually, her parents decided to pull her teeth because she was chewing on her tongue, like bubble gum. As she got older, Gabby constantly poked and scratched at her eyes, forcing doctors to remove one. She now wears an artificial eye her parents must insert every day. Gabby also terrified her parents when she grabbed a hot light bulb, suffering second-degree burns on her hands.
And she doesn't feel weather either, right?
Exactly. She can walk out
She'd
the
do really
door.
well in Chicago.
Well, exactly.
Yes, it's a funny joke I made, yeah. So, Katie, what's it like being a big sister to a little sister that feels no pain? You can't beat her up, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. It's another funny. Yes?
It's a little hard.
Yeah?
Because she doesn't feel pain. And most of the tension is on her. So she doesn't get hurt.
Well, today it's not, because I'm looking at your patent leather shoes and how cute you are sitting on the Oprah shelf.
My team caught up with the Gingrass family at their home in Minnesota.
Oh, I need to water my garden today.
You do. Gabby is at the end of 8th grade. She's 14 years old. Mentally, some days she's 35.
I need to empty my lunch too.
I think she's doing great. She gets straight A's in school. She's funny, she's alert, she is a joy to be with.
Take it home.
It's easier for Gabby and our family to deal with her condition now.
For the most part, she knows where her limitations are.
Watch the crock pot's hot.
She came home from school one day and said, my back feels funny. We felt on her back and felt a bump and felt it was warm. And we had a doctor's appointment for the next day already. And they took an x-ray and they came back and they said that her back was broken.
You were wearing no back shirt today.
I think already in the next few months we have like 6 appointments. She has an eye specialist, she has an endocrinologist, she has an orthopedic surgeon, she has a regular doctor just for colds and small things.
Oh, it wasn't that bad. You went on the one that...
Katie is such a good sister.
I feel like I get enough attention, and I feel like Gabby gets enough attention, but I feel like they're different spheres of attention. It's sort of an adventure with this family, but it's a really fun adventure because Gabby's a very nice, loving person. And
Gabby and Taylor met when they were in 1st grade, and they have been just tremendous friends.
Whoa! Okay.
I love her sense of humor. I do still worry about Gabby. I remember that if she ever got picked on, it was just really hard on me too, because we're so close. You just kind of had to tell them to leave her alone.
She has an amazing personality. All her teachers love her. She has a big change with high school coming up next year.
Kids in elementary school used to ask me a lot more about my condition, so I feel like they know me better now. So I guess I'm more comfortable with my condition than I have been in the past. I love to learn, I love to interact with the people around me, I love to make friends, so it doesn't really affect who I am, but more what I do. And it's why can't you be this or do this like everybody else? And sometimes that does get to me, and I try to not let it bug me. But it does get to me sometimes, and I just keep telling myself, you're normal, you're okay, just keep going. So, yeah.
And Gabby's got some big dreams, and we really want to do the best we can to help her do that, but it's my fear that there's going to be a limitation that doesn't let her achieve that, and she'll be really disappointed if she's not able to do some of the things that she wants to do.
But she's done things we never expected her to do and achieved things I had only dreamed for her.
I don't think people would really know my true personality because all they really know is that I'm physically impaired. I have wonderful family, I have wonderful friends. All I really want to do is not let it affect me and live my life and be who I am.
Are a number of influences to how we experience pain. The first category of those influences is a biological influence. This would include any kind of activity in the spinal cord, genetic differences in how our endorphins work in our bodies, and the brain's interpretation of the CNS activity, the central nervous system. We also have psychological influences. How much attention are we giving to the pain? Learning that is based on experiences related to pain. And then our expectations of pain relief. Is it ever going to end? Lastly, we have social, cultural influences. And this includes presence of others. That kind of has to do with, if you've ever seen a toddler fall down, get up and look around. When they see that their parent is watching, that's when they start crying. That's a social cultural influence. You also have whether that person has an empathy for other people's pain. And then lastly, there's a cultural expectation in expression and experience of pain. So how much is acceptable in your societal norms to experience and express pain? We have a couple of theories for you to understand in this section. Melzack and Wall are researchers that propose that our spinal cord contains neurological gates that either block the pain or allow it to be sensed. And within this theory, there is a neurotransmitter called substance P, and this is involved in the transmission of the pain message. So it tells the gate to open and send the message to the brain. Where does the pain go in the brain? Well, first it is relayed by the thalamus, and it goes to 2 different parts. It goes to the somatosensory cortex, and it goes to the areas of the limbic system. So in the somatosensory cortex, we have the sensory components of the pain. So we are able to judge the type of pain that we are experiencing, the location of the pain, and how much pain or the intensity of the pain. Within the areas of the limbic system, these are the primary emotional and motivational components of pain. So it's immediately perceived as unpleasantness, and this is where you have a desire to escape the pain. You want to stop it. This is your drive to stop the pain. Both of these are going to influence the prefrontal cortex. This is the secondary emotional and motivational components of pain. This is your amount of suffering. This is your worry about the future. This is your worry about if it's going to affect you later on. We have already had some exposure to phantom limb pain. Basically, pain is not just the result of stimulation. A lot of it is perceived. Amputees feel painful sensations that seem to be originating from the missing part, but it's not because the part is missing. Some explanations include that it could be due to cross-wiring in the somatosensory cortex. Basically, nearby areas take over for the missing limb, so the stimulation of those parts can cause a sensation in the missing limb. Okay, we're going to do a demonstration. Are you ready? This is going to be about body position and movement. So we're kind of moving away from pain. I'm not going to make you demonstrate pain. This is the sense of our individual body parts' position and movement. It's called kinesthesis. Kinesthesis is basically understanding where your body parts are in regard to each other. So without looking, I want you to close your eyes and touch your nose with your fingers. To really do this, I want you to put your arms out, close your eyes, and then touch your nose. I am not just really super skilled at this. I just know where my nose is in relation to my fingers, okay? You didn't have to continuously look at your nose as it, as you were pulling your arm in. You didn't have to make sure that you were getting it right. You just did, and that's kinesthesis. The vestibular sense monitors the head as well as the entire body's position in space. The sense is located in the semicircular canals of the ear. It's got that fluid. This is in the inner ear. It's the part that's right over the cochlea that looks kind of like a roller coaster. It includes our sense of balance and knowing when we're right side up or not. And that is it for sensation and perception. Our next unit is learning. I can't wait to see you then. Bye for now.